Imported fire ants are a special concern. The two species of imported fire ants, red imported fire ant and black imported fire ant, and their sexually reproducing hybrid, are invasive insects whose stings can cause serious medical problems. Properly identifying ant species is the first step in determining the need and approach for control. In the southeast, the black imported fire ant is confined to portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. Imported fire ants interfere with outdoor activities and harm wildlife throughout the southern United States and elsewhere. Where imported fire ants are common, most homeowners recognize them by the mounds they build or the stings they inflict. However, there are also other characteristics to look for. Their aggressive nature compared to other ant species is one such trait. If a mound is disturbed, usually hundreds of fire ant workers will swarm out and run up vertical surfaces to sting. I'm Dr. DeBusk, and this video will discuss the biology, management, and special concerns of red imported fire ants. Red and black imported fire ants and their sexually reproducing hybrid are social insects. Unlike many insect pests, they are very organized. Colonies consist of the brood and several casts of adults. The whitest objects often found at the top of the mounds are actually the ants' developmental stages or brood, the eggs, larvae, and pupae. Types of adults are winged males, red-brown winged females, one or more queens, and workers. Worker ants are wingless, sterile females. They vary in size within a colony from 1/16 to 3/16 of an inch long. They protect the queen by moving her from danger, defend the nest from intruders, and feed the queen only food that the workers or larvae have eaten first. They also forage for food and care for the developing brood. Winged forms, or reproductives, live in the mound until their mating flight, which usually occurs in late morning and afternoon, soon after a rainy period. Mating flights are most common in spring and fall. Males die soon after mating, while the fertilized queen lands and walks around to find a suitable nesting site, sheds her wings, and begins digging a chamber in which to start a new colony. Sometimes several queens can be found within a single nesting site. The newly mated queen is 3/8 of an inch long, red-brown, and initially lays about a dozen eggs. When they hatch 7 to 10 days later, larvae are fed by the queen. These larvae will develop into small worker ants that will feed the queen and her subsequent offspring. Later on, a queen fed by worker ants can lay from 800 to 1,000 eggs per day. Larvae develop in 6 to 10 days and then pupate. Adults emerge 9 to 15 days later. The average colony contains 100,000 to 500,000 workers and up to several hundred winged forms and queens. Queen ants can live 7 years or more, while worker ants generally live about 5 weeks in summer and longer in cooler months. Larger workers generally live longer than smaller workers. In addition to sexually reproductive hybrid imported fire ants, there are two kinds of red imported fire ant colonies, the single queen and multiple queen forms. Workers in single queen colonies are territorial. Workers from multiple queen colonies can move freely from one mound to another. This lack of territorial behavior by the multiple queen form causes a dramatic increase in the number of mounds per acre. Areas infested with single queen colonies contain 40 to 150 mounds per acre, whereas areas with multiple queen colonies may harbor 200 or more mounds and 40 million ants per acre. Red imported fire ants build mounds in almost any type of soil, but prefer open, sunny areas. Mounds can reach 18 to 24 inches in height, depending on the type of soil. Often mounds are located in rotting logs and around stumps and trees. Colonies also can occur in or under buildings. Colonies frequently migrate from one site to another. The queen needs only half a dozen workers to start a new colony, and they can build a new mound dozens of feet away from the previous location almost overnight. Freshwater flooding causes colonies to leave their mounds and float until they can reach land to establish a new mound. Colonies can also migrate indoors. Besides the obvious reason for eliminating, fire ants prey on caterpillars, the developing stage of butterflies, and must be eliminated from landscapes where butterfly gardens are desired. Nectar-producing flowers planted to attract adult butterflies are mostly ornamental bedding plants or shrubs. Fire ants can also invade mulched flower beds seeking warmth and moisture. Around the 1930s, the red imported fire ant was accidentally brought into Mobile, Alabama from South America. It now infests more than 325 million acres, comprising most of 12 southern states, and Puerto Rico, with infestations also in New Mexico and California. It has recently been reported in northern Mexico, Australia, Taiwan, and China. Another species, the black imported fire ant, was also introduced, but this species is limited to northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, and southern Tennessee. Fire ants can travel long distances when newly mated queens land on cars, trucks, trains, or aircraft cargo containers, or when winged forms are carried by the wind. Shipments of nursery stock or soil from an infested area may relocate entire colonies. Attempts in the late 1960s and early 1970s to eradicate the red imported fire ant were not successful. Why did early attempts of eradication fail? The pesticides used, although effective, were no match against the species capable of reinvading treated areas. The reasons for failure are debatable, but it is now known that eradication is hindered by the ant's biology and by problems with treatment methods. Recent attempts to eradicate this ant from parts of California and Australia using new products and treatment methods have shown very promising results. Successful eradication of the imported fire ant in large areas has yet to be documented. There are also other reasons why eradication has not been successful, including technological obstacles. Pesticide treatments are expensive and time-consuming, and there are only 3 basic approaches. The first is surface treatment using a residual contact poison. This approach is the least environmentally sound because the treated surface remains toxic for a long time. The ants may survive by foraging underground. The second is individual mound treatment, which involves applying a large volume of pesticide to reach the queen. However, it is nearly impossible to locate all of the colonies in an area and difficult to manipulate large volumes of liquid. Also, mound treatment is more expensive and time-consuming than broadcast treatments. Colonies not eliminated may move or split into several colonies. The third method is bait treatment, which uses some sort of attractive substance the ants like to eat. Unfortunately, baits are not always consumed, and the bait's attractiveness is short-lived. The bait must be slow-acting and effective over a range of doses, since the dose the ant gets cannot be controlled. Baits may also be attractive to and kill some native ant species that compete with fire ants. The next reason are economic, regulatory, and environmental obstacles. The best way to treat large areas is by an aerial application of bait. However, not all areas can be treated because of label restrictions and application limitations. Even with a bait product, it is not feasible to treat the entire infested area or even a large part of a single state, and untreated areas are sources of reinfestation. The larger the treatment area, the more slowly reinfestation occurs. If periodic treatments are discontinued, the area may become more infested than it originally was within a year or two because treatments may have eliminated competing ant species. The third reason is biological obstacles. In the southeastern U.S., the pest infests such an extensive area that it would take years and massive resources to apply a single treatment to the entire infested area. Fire ants have a high reproductive rate, disperse easily, and easily reinvade in treated areas. Thousands of reproductive females are produced per colony, and mated females begin a colony wherever they land. Queens can fly up to a mile on their own or even farther when assisted by the wind. Once colonies are established, the ants eliminate competing insects and then rapidly overwhelm an area. Whole colonies can move, and in multiple queen form, the colonies can split into many new colonies. If a poison works too rapidly, the worker is killed before poison is passed to the queen. Finally, worker ants from well-fed colonies may not forage on a bait product, or a bait may not be as attractive as some abundant natural food. Colonies move vertically and horizontally in the soil profile to escape floods, droughts, and extreme temperatures. When worker ants from new colonies are not actively foraging, they may be unaffected by baits or other pesticides applied to the soil surface. Such undetected ant mounds could escape eradication efforts. Fire ants are aggressive and will defensively attack anything that disturbs them. Fire ants can sting repeatedly. Symptoms of a fire ant sting include burning, itching, and a white fluid-filled pustule that forms a day or two afterward. Often people note a circular pattern of pustules, which may be caused by one ant stinging several times. Although the stings are not usually life-threatening, they can be easily infected if the skin is broken and may leave permanent scars. If the only symptoms are pain and the development of pustules, stings can be treated with the over over-the-counter products that relieve insect bites and stings. If a sting leads to severe chest pain, nausea, sweating, difficulty breathing, serious swelling, or slurred speech, the person should be taken to an emergency medical facility immediately. Some allergic people may lapse into a coma with just one sting. Compared to deaths from bee and wasp stings, relatively few deaths from fire ant stings have been documented. People sensitive to fire ant stings should seek the advice of an allergist. Once a person has discovered that he or she is allergic to the fire ant venom, extra care must be taken to avoid stings. Often individuals allergic to the venom will carry epinephrine, EpiPens, or undergo treatment in an attempt to desensitize their reaction to the venom. Tips for avoiding medical emergencies and for treating ant stings. Teach children and visitors about the hazard of fire ants and to be aware of ant mounds. Wear protective clothing during outdoor activities. Wear shoes or boots and/or tuck pant legs into socks. Treat stings with an insect bite remedy that deadens pain and protects against infection. Control fire ants in areas used most frequently by people and pets. Use insect repellents on clothing and footwear. These treatments can temporarily discourage foraging ants but will not deter their defensive reaction of ants emerging from a disturbed mound. Flooded fire ants float on water. These ants should be especially avoided as they carry more venom, inject more venom per sting, and are very aggressive. There are numerous chemical insecticide active ingredients that have contact activity against fire ants. Some of the chemical classes used for contact control include synthetic pyrethroids, carbamates, and organophosphates. There are also several botanical insecticides, that is, they are naturally occurring chemicals extracted or derived from plants or minerals. These include D-limonene and pyrethrins. D-limonene is obtained commercially from citrus fruits. Pyrethrins are natural insecticidal compounds that are extracts of the chrysanthemum plant. Pyrethrum is the source of natural insecticides made from the ground-dried flowers of certain species of chrysanthemum plant. The ground flowers contain a mixture of several different compounds called pyrethrins and cynorins. Diatomaceous earth, DE, is an inorganic mineral-derived compound that acts as a desiccant by scratching and absorbing the waxy layer that makes up part of the insect's exoskeleton. DE is most commonly applied as a dust to ant foraging trails to kill foraging ants. However, this use will have little or no effect on the ant colony or nest. Insecticide-grade DE products are available, but when applied as a dry dust to the top of an ant mound or as a drench, fail to contact ants. Also, high humidity in ant mounds prevent desiccation. Thus, this ingredient acts more as a carrier in fire ant products that list DE as an active ingredient. When DE is used as a carrier in formulations of pyrethrins, it may enhance the penetration of this botanical insecticide into the body of an insect. This table provides a listing of baits for control of fire ants in landscaped areas. All trade products in the table bear the signal word caution. In this video, I hope you learned more about red imported fire ants, why they are difficult to control, and treatment methods.